Hey friends, welcome to a very special edition of Adventures in Design. On the show today, Kindrick Kidd joins me in an Uber at the airport, and we're wrapping up Portland Pop-Up Crop. It was a great weekend. We had a lot of fun. Shout out to Matt and Tony for putting a great event together, to Lincoln, to Benny, to all of the folks that came out, the tall boy, Amir coming out from Sweden. We had a great weekend, and we talk about all of that in Kendrick's story coming up next in Adventures in Design. Hey friends, how would you like a 4-day work week or a 4-day vacation? Both of those sound pretty good to me right now, but let me offer you this. How about a 4-day turnaround time on most popular apparel options? That's right, it's 4-day apparel from Jack Prince. No rush fees, no hassle, no BS, no problems. Jack Prince has got you taken care of in just 4 short days. That's right, the 4-day apparel. And we're not talking garbage tees, we're talking great stuff like the popular All Style, 1301, American Apparel, Next Level, Toltecs, Gildan, and many, many others. If you need new shirts for your band or brand and you don't have time to wait for it, head over to jack.inc/4days and get your 4-day apparel, well, in 4 days. Oh, and that leaves so much more time for making sweet, sweet partying. Visit jackprince.com/circle of trust to save even more.
You're listening to the AID Network.
Coming to you live from the Saul Rosenberg Studios, broadcasting worldwide into all ships at sea, here comes another action-packed episode of Adventures in Design.
Kindrick Kidd, welcome to Adventures in Design.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for having me in your Uber. Hey, if this show sounds a little bit different than the other ones that we've done, it's because we are in the back of an Uber going to PDX after a successful weekend at Crop Portland. Did you have fun?
Man, it was such a good time.
Yeah, you did something that kind of just blew my mind. And yes, my voice sounds rough. I understand this to everybody at home. You did something that's interesting. You didn't speak. You didn't do a panel. You didn't do an artist signing or set up a merch booth. You just literally came to hang and be a dude.
Yeah, man. I honestly, when I started to check out the lineup, it was just way too good to kind of pass up. There was going to be so many good folk, in like one place. So why not?
Well, I just can't even imagine though, like what part of you will allow yourself just to do something for fun.
Oh man, that's the best stuff though,
But I'm just like, I'm so wired into like, well, there's the flight and the hotel and the time away from because you got the beautiful wife, the 2 kids, and by the way, your kids are hilarious to me.
I appreciate it, man.
Because it looks like the same kid that comes in 2 models, like big or like tiny.
Yes.
Like the size difference between them is like huge, but it looks like the same kid, 2 sizes.
Yeah, no, they're clones for sure.
So you're one of the guys that still has a day job.
Yep.
And you work at an agency.
Yes.
How long you been there for?
About 14 years now.
14 years.
Yep.
14 years.
Yes, 14.
How old are you, brother?
I am 42.
All right. Yeah, right. We're in that same horrible bracket.
Yes, we are in the same age bracket. It's a good one though, man. Like, I feel like 30s was harder than the 40 transition.
How long have you been doing the freelance? Like the work that looks like Kindrick Kidd. How long have you been doing that for?
Maybe like 2007-ish.
All right.
Somewhere in there.
So what we're looking at online is an 11-year run of really showcasing your voice as an artist, finding what clicks for you, but also just a lot of background noise of working under not the best conditions. Client work where you have little to no creative control, crazy timelines. Like, for 11 years, you've been pursuing work that you're super passionate about that reflects you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've been double dipping with the day job and the freelance stuff, but I'm actually, like, probably the last couple years, I've been trying to fold more of the stuff that I've been doing on the side into, like, my day job. I'm fortunate enough that, like, the people at work treat me, I get treated well. Like, they're super, super nice people. Yeah. And we're starting to get more and more talent in the door, that just a higher caliber talent that can do really good work. So I've been trying to fold more of the freelance into the day job stuff, and it's been working out pretty good. I mean, we don't have a ton of like super sexy clients like Nike or something like that. But we're starting to get more stuff of that I don't know, that I just enjoy working on.
Yeah. Florida seems like a weird market, a weird part of the country to be in an advertising agency. Like isn't Florida just kind of like its own little pocket that the rest of America like vacations at sometimes and it forgets about the rest of the time?
Yeah, I guess it is. When people think of Florida, they don't think of it as like a mecca for advertising or design or illustration or anything like that.
I just think because it just feels like it's just so its own thing. It's so far away from everything else. Like if you've never driven across Florida, it takes a whole day.
Yep.
Like Florida's it's literally its own little ecosystem within inside America. It's like one of those moments where it feels like maybe the states could all be countries.
Yeah, no, for sure, man, for sure.
All right, so when you're there and you're doing that work, and then you decide at some point, like, what was the sort of the genesis for, I need to start doing something on the side? Like, how did the Kindrick Kidd like identity of doing your own stuff at such a more rapid level? Because I'm sure you were always tinkering in the background.
Yeah.
But how did you decide to like actually brand yourself when the bills were paid and you had security? Like, what were you looking for?
I think I was just looking for more fulfillment through the work. Like, I really enjoy doing what I do, and I wasn't getting, we would get some projects that would come through work that were like a lot of fun to work on, but I guess I wanted more of that. And doing the side work, I was able to control, what clients I would take on and what kind of work I would be doing. And so I was just looking for more fun stuff to do.
It looked like you were also to craft more of an illustrator career for yourself.
Yeah, that was probably unintentional. Like, I've always gravitated towards illustration, but I think I started doing more illustration work and posting more illustration work, and I think, you get the kind of work that you show.
100%. That's how it works. Nobody knows what you can do until you show them.
No, it's the absolute truth, man. So it kind of happened organically, I guess.
Don't you feel like that you and I are part of this generation where we drew in notebooks in school, we sit there and drew like Powell Peralta and Jim Phillips graphics all day long, Metallica logos, Anthrax logos, you name it.
Totally.
But with the invention of vector art and Illustrator, you started to see like maybe a different way to illustrate, where I know how to make these circles, squares, triangles, and sometimes sausages kind of tell a story.
Yeah.
And it's fun having that, like growing up, knowing the pencil or the pen and ink, and then migrating over to Illustrator where you're like, oh, this is just like playing with Legos.
Yeah. No, it really is. And it's funny too, because I think there was a stigma attached to it early on. Like if you were doing, illustration in Illustrator, you weren't really an illustrator.
Right.
But that's kind of evolved over the last 10 years, and I feel like it's been more accepted and people are getting better in it, and not just doing like shape illustrations, but really leveraging the program to do whatever the hell they want.
Well, it's like yesterday you and I watched Lincoln Design Co. do like a whole team sort of a workshop on how they use illustration in their studio, and between Damaso, Brandon, and then Davey, you have three very different illustrators, and Davey's the one that does it all digitally based, in Illustrator. And I don't think that his work is not as impressive or weaker than Damaso and Brandon's. And those guys are insane in what they do, but there's sort of a precision and a cleanliness to what Davey does.
Yeah.
And I like the juxtaposition between both of those worlds.
Yeah, the amount of range that those guys have between all of the different styles, it's just hard to fathom. They've got an insane amount of talent.
It's like when I interviewed them for the very first time in a hotel in Long Beach, because I always do these interviews in weird spots.
Right on.
I just told Dan straight up, I'm like, you have assembled the Bones Brigade of design.
No, that's the perfect analogy.
You have a 7-man team.
Yep.
Everybody's specialized in their own way. You're Stacy Peralta, and they just rip. They rip for you every day,
Yeah, man, they're all hitters.
So let's talk about this. You step out on your own to find more sort of personal fulfillment and to just kind of, maybe sharpen your skills or see what your voice sounds like. But I have a theory, and I don't know the answer to this, but I have a theory that when you do that, all of a sudden the day job starts to respect you even more.
Yeah, it evolves, and I think that can happen even if you aren't doing side work. I mean, people who are interested in their careers naturally want to progress and get better.
Right.
But yeah, when you're given enough freedom to go and kind of explore your craft and really see how far you can push it, beyond the confines of just the daily work. I feel like it does evolve.
To me, it's interesting though that it's like, you show the people at work you're capable to do a little bit more.
Yep.
And then they start to probably really respect you and think of, oh, we now have a heavy hitter under our own roof, kind of talking about with Lincoln, that they now know that instead of hiring an illustrator, oh, Kendrick can handle that.
Yep.
And then you're, in the flip side, this wasn't your intention, but you're now getting to do at work what was missing. So in a weird way, like, not only did you show the world what you wanted to do, but you showed your work what you wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of it is, since work kind of allows me to do the freelance at the office, and they're like super great about it.
Oh wow, that's insane.
Yeah, no, it's probably one of the most liberal agencies when it comes to freelance work that I've ever even heard about. But it's the flip side is I share the work with them, and we have there are some like personal portfolio pieces that I did at the agency that the agency shows within its portfolio. And again, getting back to that whole, you get what you show, it's now starting to influence the work that's coming in the building.
Right.
So yeah, it's like
you're starting to make their agency feel a little bit more rounded out, that it has a unique voice and a unique style.
Absolutely.
You know what that says to me? Job security.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're probably right, man. You're probably right.
Wow, that's great. I mean, but what an unintentional win.
Yeah, it's all been so organic, and I feel like there hasn't been like any huge like conscious decisions, years ago that this is what we're going to do. But it's just kind of the way that it's worked out, and I think that's a testament to the agency to be open to letting people do that kind of stuff within the confines of their business. So yeah, it's just been good.
I find that a lot of people, and I think that this last 8 minutes has been like a powerful 8 minutes for people that have the agency job that feel stuck, or they look at Instagram and feel like everybody else is doing something fun but me.
Right.
Because you literally just took a little bit of time, did what you wanted to do, got good at it, and you proved not only to freelance clients but to your day job that you were worthy of this advancement. And I think so many people just sit back and they feel like a prisoner in their own life, wondering why it's not happening for them, but it's because they've decided to not allow it to happen for them.
Right.
Like, all you're talking about is just simply giving yourself permission to do this.
You're exactly right. Your future is what you make of it, and if 100%. You're sitting around waiting for something to happen, it may or it may not. Probably more likely not. But if you take control of that and make a conscious effort to better your craft and better your career, then I don't know. It's like setting yourself up for good luck.
Right.
Yeah.
I always, my white trash way of looking at this, and you're from Florida, so you're white trash.
I can relate.
Is that all of these things that we do are emotional lottery tickets, right? Like, you're just buying the ticket hoping that you win, and the more tickets you have, the greater of the chance. The illustration style that you do, that you've recently been doing, where it's like, I don't want to say monoline, because that's more of what people will think of, like Brian Steely or the work that you did for Entertainment Weekly, which was fun to see that in there.
Right on.
Because I'm a subscriber. I read it every week, and so many of my friends have started to pop up in there now. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
That's awesome.
Martin Anson's in here again, but not working as hard as he does for Mondo. That illustration style that you do, where it's like, there's like simple lines of a face, but then lots of little bitty lines. Like, I don't even know what to call that style. It just looks sort of like a Sharpie doodle, but I can tell that it's being done in Illustrator.
Right.
How did you stumble into that? Like, that's been a fun little thing to watch you start dabbing into.
Honestly, man, I think I have a little bit of ADD when it comes to illustration style. I like to try a lot of different things, and if I'm sitting on something for too long, I end up just kind of naturally tweaking it.
Yeah.
Because the ADD,
overworking it?
Yeah, a little bit. But when you do that, you discover little things that work and a lot of things that don't work, and I guess you kind of keep the ones that do and just keep evolving it.
that's been a fun thing to see you do. And it's really fun because I don't know anybody else that's doing that right now. And it also becomes like, here's another thing that you're capable of. Because you have the typography in your back pocket. You have the really, really great branding. I love when you do the images where it's just for fun, like harpoons for sale or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just simply designing because it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And making all those little marks, making all those little calls to action, like, not just typography, but type that talks to you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I honestly, I'm a sucker for anything that has like a story behind it.
Yeah.
Like, I love a really, really good execution, but if you can build in, some kind of communication to either make people laugh or grin, or I don't know, it's more fun, it's more meaningful.
It's great. All right, I can see the PDX tower ahead. What's your name, sir? Abdi? Yes, sir. Abdi, our Uber driver, has been really nice, and I want to give him a shout out because he was listening to football, and he's like, oh, these two in my back seat are going to do this interview, and I'm going to turn it down so they can have their conversation. So I appreciate you turning down the football. I hope you didn't miss your match.
No, it's okay. Thank you, guys.
But I have an idea that when you turn it back on, it's still going to be 0-0, and it'll be that way for the next 85 minutes. We'll be back with more when we're on the other side of security with Kindrick Kidd on Adventures in Design. And my voice is cracking like Snap, Crackle, Pop. Hey friends, today's episode of Adventures in Design with Kindrick Kidd is sponsored by Skillshare. Today's episode is all about the influence and good times we had at Pop-Up Crop this past weekend in Portland, right? Where you go to a conference and you see a lot of your design heroes speak, and it's very influential. It makes you feel good to be there. Those moments don't have to just happen when you hop in a plane and fly across the other side of the country to go to a design conference. Those type of moments can happen every day if you're a Skillshare member. That's right. You can sit at your desk. You can sit where you work, put it up on the second monitor, put it up on your iPad, and you can follow along with industry leaders in every level of creativity that you can imagine. There's more in there than just illustration and design. There's also how to run your checklist, how to manage your calendar, how to build your business, how to work on your website so it's more SEO friendly. If you can think of a creative task, one of the professionals that's an industry leader is there to teach it to you at Skillshare.com. And many of those leaders are people that we have on the show: Aaron Draplin, DKNG, even today's guest, Kendrick Kidd. So whether you're trying to deepen your professional skill set, start a side hustle, or just explore a new passion, Skillshare is there to keep you learning and thriving. Join millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for my listeners. Get 2 months of Skillshare for just 99 cents. That's right. Skillshare is offering Adventures in Design listeners 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes for just 99 cents. To sign up, go to Skillshare.com/adventure. Again, go to Skillshare.com/adventure to start your 2 months now. That's Skillshare.com/adventure. And we're back, sitting in the airport. Probably not quite as loud for you guys, and we have people sitting around us, so this might be a very subdued version of me, but I have a feeling in like 5 minutes I'll be yelling and standing on the chair and be like, who here hates their boss? All right, so in the first little bit, we talked a lot about sort of you stepping into freelance and how that in turn made your day job stronger. Like you found a way to make your work work for you.
Yes.
Think about where the commas go in that sentence. But what I'd like to talk to you about now is sort of that development of style and how important it was to just probably make design fun again.
Yeah, honestly, man, like a lot of it has been a completely unconscious decision.
Yeah.
I think if anything, I just allowed myself the freedom to explore like different things and didn't really get too hung up in, I need to develop this one particular style because that's what you're supposed to do as an illustrator.
Did you feel pressure?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Not any particular person like putting it on me, but just that pressure of this is what you were supposed to do versus this is what you want to do.
But did you feel a pressure of time? Like, I have the wife, I have the kids, I don't have an enormous amount of time to invest in this, so if I sit down at my desk, I got to grind fast? Or were you on the flip side where you're like, well, because this isn't my do or die. I don't need to put food on the table to get this done. I have time to explore. Like, how does it work for a guy in that situation?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's more the second thing you said.
Yeah.
Because I had the full-time job, it allowed me enough freedom to really only do the things that I wanted to do, because I wasn't relying on it for income.
So what do you think of yourself more as? I'm going to give you 3 options. Do you see yourself more as a typographer? Do you see yourself more as an illustrator? Or do you see yourself more as just a well-rounded graphic designer?
I'll go with 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the cheat, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like I specialize enough in either one of like typography or illustration to be like, I'm proficient, but there's a million other people out there doing it better.
But here lately, you have a long love of fishing. And I think that comes from being in Florida, right? It's your national pastime.
Sure.
And were those digital watercolors that you did of the different like fish species?
Yeah, so I did a fair amount of fishing when I was a kid. I've done so little as an adult.
Yeah, but it seems like it's a bit of your identity.
Yeah, well, I mean, being in Florida, yeah, there's water everywhere and there's fishing everywhere. And
right.
Definitely had plenty of friends growing up that still do a hell of a lot of fishing.
It's also a very visual sport.
Yeah.
Like there's a sort of an Americana and a coolness to the rod, the leers, like, or is it leer? What is it? Rod?
The lures.
Lures.
Yeah,
leers.
yeah.
I'm from a landlocked state. Leave me alone.
I'm not judging.
But there's sort of like a kitschiness and coolness to the whole vibe of it, the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, I feel like even in the last probably year, I've seen a lot more of it popping up in like different parts of the design community.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I just recently got an iPad Pro. And I was really eager to just try out.
Game changer, that device.
It really is, man.
Game changer.
Yeah.
I got one in the middle of the illustration work I was doing for Disneyland.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, this Wacom's a piece of shit. Because it was so important to get, because I only had the Wacom, the stylus, or what is the Intuos, or whatever it is,
I'm not even sure, man.
where you just like draw on it, like down here, and you look at your monitor.
Yeah.
So I wasn't actually on the Cintiq where art
You can
is
actually
underpinned.
draw on the screen. Yeah.
And then when I got the Pro, I was like, this is a game changer. And then I found out about AstroPad.
Yep.
Are you familiar with that app?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
That's the game changer.
So AstroPad, doesn't that like allow you to use like Photoshop on your iPad, or is that something else? Or, wait,
yeah.
no, wait. It turns your iPad into
A Cintiq.
A Cintiq. That's right.
So it gives you a couple of different options. Like you can basically take whatever is on your iPad, or I'm sorry, on your iMac laptop, and you can push it over to the iPad.
Yeah.
And so then it's a Cintiq. Like you're not in a iOS-based program. You're in big boy Photoshop.
Yep.
With all of your tricks and tools. So, and you can also set it up as a secondary screen. So I'd keep like my tools basically on the iMac and just have the iPad for the illustration area. But then here's the real game changer. As long as those two are on the same Wi-Fi network,
Yep.
you can be downstairs with the kids coloring in artwork to your computer that's in your office upstairs.
Oh, dude, that's super sick.
Yeah. And, it's all saving to the master file.
Yeah.
Because the problem with the iOS stuff is it just doesn't jive. It's its own locked up world, and it's hard to get that data into your real computer.
Sure.
And they're like weird files, not ready for print. So it just makes your computer more mobile and more Illustrator friendly.
So I haven't checked it out yet, but I've had a couple people recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna.
That was the product was the game changer. That was the game winner. Like that's
Right
the way
on.
I look at it. And I'm not sponsored by them. I just happen to love the product. I think that it's incredibly genius. And I've heard people be like, yeah, but it's a $17 app. I'm like, do you know how much a Cintiq costs?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
And we were just at Wacom last night, so we're really not being good friends.
Yeah.
But I tell the truth. They're not a sponsor. Okay, so you got the iPad,
Yeah.
and then that allowed you to get more into illustration.
Yeah, just a different kind of illustration. Like I grew up doing a lot of drawing and painting as a kid, but as soon as I got into design, it was pretty much everything I was generating was on the computer, unless it was like a sketch for a design. So being able to kind of explore a little bit more like the fine art, or at least mimicking fine art type stuff, that was cool,
Mimicking fine art is such a funny way to describe, I feel like, our whole generation. Like, we understand fine art.
Yeah.
Many of us had to learn about it in high school or community college or real college.
Sure.
Did you go to art school?
No, I went to UNF.
Okay.
Yep.
So, we were taught fine art. We weren't taught commercial art.
Yeah.
Because it didn't. There was Andy Warhol, and then there was just like Madison Avenue advertising. There wasn't really what our generation has claimed.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever taught you that you could be like Morning Breath.
Yeah.
Who I will go down saying they're the most under-celebrated design studio or duo in the history of modern design.
Dude, those guys are so freaking sick. I mean, just
they're on the
another
next level.
sick.
Yeah. I think we said it at the same time. Like
Yeah.
Their exploration, their ideology of their studio and of what art can be, it's something that I think the only people that understand it are designers that are at the level that guys like you and I and our peers are at. Like the lifers, the people that like live and breathe it and don't just go, that's cool or that's hip, but why does it work? You know, the people that question why they're over colors and over patterns, and like when they started doing the eyes on top of the eyes things, I'm like, I hate this because I don't know where to look, and your illustrations are intimidating me. Like, please stop it, but I love it at the same time.
I know, right?
We went to school, it was just like there was fine art.
Yeah.
And so then we all started illustrating, and we're like, yeah, but how can I make fine art work for me, or how can I put that into a product or a skateboard or a t-shirt design? Because to us that not only seems more possible but more rewarding, right? Like you don't want to be a fine artist.
No
It doesn't seem
interest.
fun anymore.
No, definitely not.
But this seems rad. You get to make good stuff for good people. You can fill up a room with ephemera that you created. Like it's a whole journey that you get to go on.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It is really hitting in between that space of, commercial art and fine art, which I honestly don't really have that much interest in.
So when you were doing those illustrations of the fish recently, though, that is coming from a way like there's a fine art like chassis there.
Sure.
But you're sort of giving it the sensibilities, like the color patterns, the line weight, sort of the roughness of it. It looks more like modern day advertising.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like when I was actually doing the illustrations, the entire time I'm thinking, how can I apply this to a design or an advertisement or an editorial article or something like that. Yeah.
But I see you doing that and just adding another trick to the trade where it's like one day, your agency will like, hey, we're going to be doing something for this new mall. Like, could you do like the fish? Could you do like an architectural rendering, kind of like a loosey-goosey of what it's going to look like?
Yeah.
Like you're setting yourself up for that next possibility.
Yeah, and honestly, like with intention, right?
Yeah.
Like I've already started to apply some of the iPad stuff to just like loose storyboards for the agency.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm constantly like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out where the application is. It's not just for the sake of doing it. I want to know how I can use it and leverage it.
Well, we started out this interview with me saying, my God, how could you just go someplace for fun? Because what you just said is my entire life. Like, if I'm going to do anything, I have to see a long-term potential or return from it.
Sure.
Like, I'm very envious of people that game. Because if you're just playing Fortnite, all you're doing in that moment is playing Fortnite.
Right.
And to me, it's like, I don't want to become like a Twitch Fortnite guy.
Right.
So therefore, there's no reason to play Fortnite because Fortnite to me would only be a vehicle to what I could get from it, you know? So I love the fact that you're like, I'm going to do these illustrations. And I'm not quite sure what, but I know that I'm setting myself up for a future win.
Yeah, trying to at least.
Yeah, well, you will. You will. You got the batting average to prove it. So at this moment, where do you find time for that sort of exploration?
So the majority of the stuff that I do these days is in the morning. Like I get up at 4 a.m. I'm at work by 5:30. In between like 5:30 and probably 9 o'clock, I'm pushing hard on either side work or exploration or research, so that my kids are sleeping, my wife's sleeping, and I'm not really taking time away from the family.
Yeah.
And when I get home in the evenings, like I'm not thinking about any of it. I'm hanging out with my kids. I'm having dinner with my wife.
So you just do that early morning, break of dawn before the world starts. Like, what's the Army say? Before most people get up, we've done more than most people will do all day.
Yeah.
Like that thing.
No, it's the truth though. It's the truth. And it's so, I find it so much easier because it's quiet. There's not all these interruptions. You can really have focused time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm rolling with these days. I
always find it interesting when people act like they're a victim. You know, like we were talking about earlier. Oh, it's not happening for me. I don't have the time for it. Like when people make excuses, I'm just like, you've decided that that's what you want.
Right.
Like you're in control of that destiny, because guys like you or Derek Castle will always prove that there is a formula of time that will work for you. Like my friend Enon, who works on my website, this guy works for a huge website, goes home, puts in QT with the family, the wife, kids, goes and takes a 2-hour nap, gets back up, and then works like 3 or 4 more hours in the night when his house is quiet.
Oh my gosh.
And it sounds insane, and he doesn't do it every night of the week. But I've just met so many people that are like, I enjoy this. It's important to me. I can make it happen.
Yeah, well, and the reality is, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
100%.
Right.
And I think that when you go to something like Pop-Up Crop in Portland this past weekend, you quickly realize that there's a lot of, and I don't mean this as a insult, but there's just a lot of people that are in their lost years. And I was in my lost years.
Yep.
Like there's a moment in your life where you're old enough to know that you want something more,
Yep.
but you're not quite old enough yet to know what it is.
Sure.
And I always like coming into these events because I remember my lost years. I was a despicable human being, you know, like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought that the world was against me, and it took years of retraining, reprogramming that brain. So when I sit in front of a bunch of people that are either making excuses or they're naive or they're lost, I love the ability to give them the shortcut to get there a little bit faster.
Yeah, man. Honestly, the talk that you gave yesterday, I felt like was, I don't want to say inspirational, but it was inspirational, right? Like, because it's like one of those like motivating things where you're just kind of teaching people that, hey, if you want to do this, you have the ability to do it, and if you choose to take control, you can achieve something.
First off, thank you. Second, I think we live in a time where the internet is just creating this massive divide of the haves and the have-nots. And I think it's really, really easy to look at a guy like you and just go, this guy's killing it, and I won't be this good, and I don't have 30,000 followers, and people don't freak out about my work, because you have a whole vibe that people really respond to. And I always think that the more that people like you and myself can show those people that 11-year gap and the 16 years of the day job.
Oh yeah.
You know, like everybody on Instagram that's doing something big, I say it's the finish line, even though you feel like you got a lot more to go, but it's a bit of the finish line in your life, in that you went through so much of the muck to get here.
Yeah.
And for them to think that they can just go from their lost years to where you're sitting, that's an impossible journey to do in a short time. Like you have to live a little to get there.
Yeah, no, you got to put in the time, man. And I feel like everybody who's had successes, or a lot of people that have had successes in their lives, it wasn't handed to them.
No.
You know, and you don't get to hear that part of the story. You know, you just see the end result.
And that's what I've always tried to do, is no matter who's sitting across from me, I try to break down like what that grind is.
Sure.
You know, because it's not easy for anybody, because like for you, you're getting up crazy early. I'm sure when that alarm goes off, you're like, oh God.
Yeah, some days.
Fishing lures? Really? This is what I've chose to do with myself when other people are just sleeping and dreaming about pancakes? So let's backtrack to the grind for you. You're from Florida.
Yep.
We're about the same age. So Florida was a hotbed for skateboarding.
Yeah.
You're a skateboarder. You've got your skateboard across from us. You got that new Lincoln deck that you're taking home, which is a perfectly cut skateboard.
So stoked.
Is skateboarding your big entry into the world of commercial design and its full potential?
Yeah, it was like a really big influence. I didn't think about it at the time, but you know, I was a shop rat on the weekends. You know, my dad would take the family out to go surf, but on the way home we would always stop off at this surf shop called Quiet Flight that had like a bunch of decks and a bunch of boards and apparel. And I remember those days of like walking through that place for, you know, a half hour, not buying a damn thing, but just like looking at
It was an art gallery.
Yeah, it really was, man. It really was. And I feel like that that was like looking back on it now, that was definitely a big influence of kind of pushing me in this direction.
What was the graphics that jumped out at you?
I mean, Jim Phillips, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude was just so super sick.
He's a legend, man.
Yeah, he is, man. He is. And it's really cool to see Santa Cruz kind of carrying on that legacy. Even though Jim's not doing the work, they're respecting the heritage and really just, I don't know, building it into the future, I guess.
Cody Millick, I believe that's how you say his last name.
Yeah.
Who's the illustrator there now? That guy is so talented.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's like a Jim Phillips cover band, but he's done a really good job of building off that ideology or that sort of that style guide.
Yeah, and like bridging it into
yes.
Yes.
Like he did a really, really good job of taking the company's history and legacy.
Yeah.
And refreshing it into his own voice.
Yeah.
And they hire a lot of really interesting people that are our peers, and they have a lot of really cool stuff coming that I'm not allowed to talk about. And I believe it all starts with that guy.
Yeah.
Because he has the vision of, I can't do all this on my own.
Sure.
I know rad people. So I'm interested to see if Cody becomes a legend to people in like 20 years. Because he's done such a good job managing that art line.
Can you imagine like being the person who has to do that? You know what I mean? Like you're tasked with, okay.
For a while it was Jim's son.
Yeah.
And that's even harder because
Yeah.
there's the dynamic of father and son.
Yeah, for sure.
And your dad's a legend and maybe you're not. And Jimbo, man, he had that was hard shoes to fill.
Yeah. Freaking massively huge shoes.
You know, and for me, Jim Phillips is not only a legend, but, you know, I remember seeing the old Rob Roscop graphic of that shield with the arm breaking out.
Yeah.
And when I got to meet Jim and go to his house in Santa Cruz, and I'm sitting in his garage, and like next to us is his hot rod.
Yeah.
And then everything else in that garage is one of everything that he's designed.
Oh.
It's like sitting in a Google image search of your guest. And I just told him, like, dude, I didn't know what was on the other side of that bullseye, but I knew that I wanted to get there.
Hell yeah.
And here I am. I'm finally there. And it's been, you know, like a 30-something year voyage, but meeting you, it's like, it's so rare in life that you get to meet the guy that puts you on the path, you know? And after I told him that, it was like music to his ears. It was like, Mark, you want to go inside and see the originals? And so then I was like holding like the original Corey O'Brien graphic and like the Jason Jesse Sun God. And I'm like, skateboarder me's dying right now. But what we didn't realize is that at the skate shop, we were looking at our future.
Yeah.
We were looking at a world where guys like us and Lincoln and DKNG and Delicious would take graphic design and make the logo that talks to you.
Yeah.
And everything that we would make would become a logo, or now they call it a badge. And, you know, and like people like Brian Steely can put so much data in a little container.
Yeah.
And to me, a great logo or a great badge, it just looks like a little sticker.
Yeah.
And that sticker in my mind comes from looking in the glass case at the skate shop.
Oh, 100%, man.
And I didn't realize it then, or when you would look at Thrasher magazine and there'd be this amazing black and white photo, and I didn't know what a fisheye lens was. I'm like, how do they bend how does the coping go into a circle?
Right.
But there'd be this amazing photo of your hero like soaring through the air or like grinding something insane. But that mark in the bottom corner that would be full color on the black and white photo.
Yeah.
That just spoke to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I can look through our whole generation of designers and spot out to you all the guys that were raised on skateboarding.
Oh, absolutely.
There's an aesthetic that's programmed into our brain.
There absolutely is.
Like in my mind, everybody's like, dude, Lincoln makes such sick this. Like all they do is make skateboard stickers.
Yeah.
And sometimes skateboards.
Yeah. That probably explains why I love all the work, right?
Yeah. I mean, it completely speaks to that 15-year-old in us. And I think to a large degree, like part of being really, really good at being creative is never letting that 15-year-old die.
Yeah.
Like letting him or her have a voice and have a say.
Yeah, well, you got to have fun doing what you're going to do, right? And I feel like when you're young, that's like those are the prime fun years, right? So the longer you can hang on to that shit, the better.
When you're, 13, 15 years old, it's kind of your last chance to see the world as this pure thing.
Yeah.
Because what happens as you get older, you start to meet the pro skateboarders.
Sure.
You meet the guys in the bands. You meet the record label. And you realize that, places that you thought were like amazing office spaces. You go there and you're like, this looks like a storage bin.
Right.
And this is the record label that I dreamed about going to. Or you want to meet a band and the singer's just like removed and he's not that guy.
Yeah.
But when you're 13 or 15, you just see the potential of everything. Then adulthood shows you the problems of everything.
Yeah, no, everything is like bigger and larger than life when you're 13 or 15, right? Like it's all mystical and like out of your reach.
And I think that the more that you let that person make some decisions on, but what would that kid say?
Yeah.
Because for me, that's also a really great way to find gratitude, because I'm so caught up in the fact that like I'm not wealthier, or I'm not further along, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, and I don't have the concrete glass house with matte black furniture that I dreamed of. But I think about it, I'm like, but that kid would just be stoked knowing that he lives in California and he got to hang out with Jim Phillips.
Dude, 100%.
You know?
100%.
And sometimes it's really easy to forget that guy.
Yeah.
And you got to let him be alive, I think.
No, I agree, man. You got to keep that youthful perspective, for sure.
Does having 2 kids help recharge the 15-year-old in you?
100%.
Helps you see the world through that angle again?
Absolutely, because everything's new to them, man. You see their eyes get wide and like see something for the first time or experience it for the first time. And you definitely get that like endorphin rush when you were a kid.
When you have the second kid, does it feel like Groundhog Day? Like, oh, we're going through this moment again? Or is it completely different because it's a different person?
It's a different person, and they experience like different things. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's rad either way.
So different lessons from the kids, even at the same pinnacles. Like the first time walking was different with him than him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. What does your wife do?
So she's a dietitian.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
I'm in that club.
Yeah. Well, and thank God, man, because I'd still be eating like Chef Boyardee on a freaking English muffin.
This weekend we put down some sizzle pie. When the nutrition's away, the fat husband will play.
Likewise, man. Likewise.
I went to eat lunch with Benny Gold yesterday, and he's like, "Isn't this place cool? It's like vegan bowls." I'm like, "Man, I ain't eating this shit." He's like, "What's the matter? You don't eat healthy?" I'm like, "No, I eat healthy too often. I refuse to eat healthy when I'm on one of these trips." I would have been like, when a cat eats something and has one, it's like, I would have been doing that in there. Okay, so let's do this. When you decided that you wanted to go into commercial art, going back 16 years when you decided to do that, if I do the monkey math, that's like early new millennium, right? It's like around 2000, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, I graduated in 98.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you went into the working force at that time, what you got, did it live up to your expectations?
No, it was different than what I kind of had in my head, but not bad different, just different. It's just, perceptions and realities.
Okay, so explain this to me. What was the reality that was different than your perception?
Well, it's the same thing you experience when you're a kid and you meet one of your heroes, right? It's like in your mind you think you've got it built up in your head, right? And everything's perfect and everything has a place and is in its place. And the reality is it's not like that, and people are still figuring it out, and you're kind of in the mix of them figuring it out, and I don't know. It's just different.
That whole adult vibe where you think when you're an adult you're going to have it all figured out. Right. And then you realize that everybody's just winging it.
Pretty much.
So you go to an agency, you're like, oh, they're going to have it dialed in, and it's going to be Mad Men, it's going to be boards with art on it, and they'll always know the deadlines. Yeah. And it won't be this like, okay, here's the thing. Rich Crackers is one of our big clients. They're coming out with a new European-inspired cracker. We need to have 8 comps out by 5 o'clock. Can you do that? Right. Dude, it's 3:30. Yeah. What do you want me to do here, man? You kind of didn't think that would happen. Why is that guy just riding a bicycle out on the tarmac? Check him out.
Oh, dude, that's kind of random. It's like a 3-wheel bike, too.
I like the guy who was like, if you guys got me a trike, I could get to places faster and take gear with me.
Yeah, he sold that.
Yeah, he's like, can we put this in the budget? So you go in and you're in the agency and you're working there, and you've been there long enough that maybe you can explain this to me. When we do an event like this weekend, people come up to me like, oh, hey, enjoy the podcast or enjoy your speech, whatever. I'm like, cool. What do you do? Like, let's just immediately flip it back around on you. Yeah. What do you do? And then a lot of them are like, I work at an agency. Yeah. And I've never worked a day at an agency. Yeah. And in fact, I'm begging, will some agency please adopt me for a week? I would love to work at an agency for a week. I want to go to an agency. I want to podcast about it every day and see what it's like on the inside, because I've never had a real design job. Why do people say that? Like, do a lot of places just sort of like beat the fun and creativity out of you? Like, there's always this like, well, I'm there, but nobody ever seems happy there. And I don't understand, because to me, it seems like a rad job. Hey, friends, thank you so much for listening to today's Hangout and Interview, Wrap Up with Kindrick Kidd. Hope you're enjoying this one. This was very impromptu. We were just saying, hey, tomorrow morning, let's catch a car together. Let's go to the airport and let's just hang out and talk about the weekend that was until we have to part ways. So thank you for being on this truly an adventure of an episode. Coming up in part 2 for members of the Circle of Trust, we talk about what does a guy like KK get from a design conference, right? Like, what is the real value in being a, settled in, you're past your lost years, you figured out what your gimmick is, you know your tricks, you know the trade. What do folks at that level get from attending events like Pop-Up Crop Portland or the crop that'll be happening this spring down in Louisiana. You know, there's a play, there's a part of your mind that really enjoys being around those that are just like you. And at events like this where it scales from lost folks, beginners, you know, intermediate to pros, it's fun to see everybody kind of find their tribe, because you like to find someone who's going through the same thing as you. So we talk a lot about that. There's a special bonus for Circle of Trust members, so keep listening past the song because I squeezed out a little bit more fun for you. But coming up next, Kindrick Kidd sort of explains to me, a guy who's never had a real design job, what the corporate culture is like and why maybe every time I ask somebody, so what do you do? I mean, I don't understand why you would work someplace that you don't want to be, but I also don't understand why the job seems to beat it out of so many people. So he explains it to me, maybe some of that I will identify or resonate with you. To hear all of today's episode as well as our archive. Yesterday, I took a day off. I'm running a little bit late today, but I took a day off yesterday and I said, you know what? I need to regroup from this amazing weekend. I'm going to put together a playlist of people that were out at the event, and I was easily able to pick 12 episodes. So if you sign up and you want to hear more about the weekend or more from the people that were there, we got the content, over 800 episodes in the archive. Sign up today, become a member, support the daily talk show for folks just like you at aidpodcast.com. What do you say we get back into Kendrick Kidd? Yo, dog, I can't believe Kendrick Kidd, man. Oh, but Kendrick, dog. But Kendrick killed it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it varies from agency to agency. There's a lot that's a little bit of a grind, and I think some people aren't prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said,
They thought it was just going to be fun pictures.
Yeah, exactly. For big clients that everybody's heard of, and the reality is, it's not always like that. But that doesn't mean that it has to be bad either. And
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with, you know, the owners of the agency and the culture that gets developed. And you know, if you get to a good place or a place where, you know, people care about the work, but they also care about the people, which I feel like it can be a rarity when you're talking about agencies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you end up in a situation like mine where you just don't leave. You know?
Right. I would think though that you've probably seen people come and go.
Yeah, for sure.
That you can tell that all of a sudden they've fallen out of love with the job and now they hate working.
Yeah.
You know, they don't hate working. They're just doing the work with hate in their heart.
Yes.
And I always think when people get in that mindset, like, look, if you've already given up on this place, get out today.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better.
Yep.
If you've emotionally given up and everything's a task and everything's a chore,
Yep.
do yourself and all of your team around you a favor and get the hell out.
It's funny, man. I've given that advice to people at the agency before, and I don't know if I should or shouldn't, but yeah, like when you see people going through struggles and they're clearly at a place where they do not want to be there anymore.
Right.
It's like, I don't want them to be unhappy. You shouldn't go through life being freaking miserable. Like, go figure something out, right? Like, go do something you love doing.
And it's crucial to the team to get rid of that person because they don't realize this, but they're dragging everybody else down with them.
Yeah, it affects the culture, man. It's contagious. I mean, good vibes are contagious. Bad vibes are contagious. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I always think it's interesting when somebody has this mindset of like, if I leave, the place will fall apart. And then they tell you like how they left or whatever. And from an outsider, you can read between the lines and like, oh, they were so happy that you quit.
Yeah.
They wanted you to go. They were stacking it against you because it's kind of hard to fire somebody. It's tricky to fire somebody. But if they quit, that's a win.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, honestly, like with the whole firing thing, you know,
look at that big.
I know, it's kind of massive.
Look at that massive piece of metal with two big engines on the side. Like, that's going to take you to Atlanta. that big, massive, heavy thing is going to go up in the sky and just do that for like 6 hours straight. And
this is like hugely distracting.
That thing is so big.
I know, it's massive.
Have you ever done one of the double-decker like international flights?
No.
Me neither. But the when I have done international, it was like the 3 rows on one side, 3 on the other, and then that big medium one where it's like 5 in the middle. You know,
yeah.
Man, how is this thing going to go over the ocean? It's
Seriously,
too big.
right?
They made it too big.
Seriously.
I hope it floats. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, wait, we were talking about firing.
We were talking about when somebody is just like bringing everybody down and sort of like, if you're done with it, just be gone and leave.
Yeah. No, it's you never want to. I don't know. At at least the place that I work at, we're very conscious about, this is somebody's livelihood. And
Yeah.
you don't want to, you want to take care of people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people need to be happy too,
To any women that are listening, what you just perfectly heard on the show was that grown men are still little boys, because a giant airplane just pulled up and we completely lost our train of thought.
We're like, oh.
We were like looking at all the little trucks unloading the bags, like everything that we ever played with is like right out the window. And because we're sitting up high, it just looks like toys. And it's like forever things like the trains and planes and big trucks will always be like, oh, I wonder what that thing does.
Yeah, I have no idea why that is, but you're absolutely right.
It's mesmerizing to
it
us.
is.
I have
It is.
no idea why. All right, so let's get into this. The sort of the struggle for your career has been what? Trying to find peace and life balance, trying to find the work that makes you happy. Like, if you had to sort of summarize, like, what the hard part has been.
The hardest part is just...
Thank you for listening to Adventures in Design podcast. To hear part 2 of today's episode, visit adventuresin.design. Click where it says Circle of Trust and help support the only daily talk show designed for creative professionals just like you. Thank you for listening. Good day and good design.